Garth Mullins, brother, thank you very much for your patience and your time on the show this evening.
No worries, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I can't begin to even tell you how much of a fan I am of Crackdown, and I know we will get to it because I have two or three things I want to share with you that how it's impacted me. Um, but first, can you tell a little bit uh, to people who don't know you about yourself and kind of with that your transition from high school until where we are now?
Sure. I guess your podcast is called Life After High School, and the
Yep.
vast majority of my life has been after high school. And to be honest, I've sort of blanked out most of high school. I hated high school. It's just like it's gone there. But I'm a opioid user. I have been my whole life since I was a teenager. Mostly heroin and then methadone. I've lived through a couple of overdose epidemics. I lived through the HIV big outbreak, the big first wave, and now we got another pandemic, another virus. And I've been an activist for a lot of my life too. More recently, around trying to get better treatment and rights for people who use drugs. So that basically it's not just all cops and jails, that there's something more for us. And I've been making a podcast about that called Crackdown for the last 2 years.
Awesome. So with that, then what was when did you start to? If we look back, you mentioned it was all most of it was a blur. All of it, even I think you mentioned was all of it was a blur. How did you? At what point did you start to realize, okay, there's mistakes I'm being made and I got to do something better for this cause, if you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've just been seeing people carted off to jail and dying for my whole life. I've gone to must have been 10 or 20 times as many funerals as I have weddings or baby showers or anything like that. And
Yeah.
and seeing it all happen, being a drug user through I live in Vancouver, and we had an officially declared public health emergency in the 90s for
Mm.
strong heroin at the same time as the biggest spread of HIV in the industrialized world. And so a lot of drug user activism started then. So this is where safe injection sites came from, and
Mm.
needle distribution, needle exchanges, all that kind of stuff that all came from the activism of a generation ago, like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's where I saw, my life was getting brutalized, and I wanted something better. I wanted to live. I wanted my friends to live. And then about 5, 6 years ago, when I saw this happening again in Vancouver
Yeah.
and across North America, I just couldn't fucking believe it. And so I tried to put my radio making skills and activism skills to work with other people in the movement who are trying to bring a little dignity and agency for people who use drugs.
Hmm. I love that. Now, how do you deal with the mental health aspect of being so close to to the deaths and the crisis that goes on? While from what I know of our few conversations we've had, you seem very positive and optimistic. Also, while you're interviewing your guests for your show, how do you maintain that while
I don't.
being so close?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm positive and optimistic. My dad calls me a pessimist, and I think I just have a good sense of humor about things,
That
but
might be
I
it.
don't
Yeah.
feel hopeful a lot of the time. But I think that too often we have to find hope where there isn't. We're like
Yeah.
almost required to like have school spirit at all times or something. And I think there's
Yeah.
a great liberatory potential in just saying what's true, in just saying like, look, 4 or 5 thousand people are going to die in Canada from this preventable thing this year. 11 or 12 today. Like that's not good, right? Like,
No.
and we can just be with that for a moment, and out of that truth can come the activism of what to do next. But if you're always trying to false hope yourself, it's very hard on you too. So yeah, I don't know. I guess what I like is I like talk when I'm talking to people. I like to find out what else is in their life other
Yeah.
than drugs in jail and stuff. Loads of musicians. Like there's just a lot of musicians that work, um, in the industry that also are drug users. There's lots of people with creativity and families and that like,
Mhm.
I don't know, bowling, everything, right? People are just drug
Yeah,
users or regular humans. So just seeing that makes me a little happy.
that's awesome. So what I'm curious to know on that subject, what is a big misconception people have of drug users
Oh, I think it's like it comes
or addicts?
from TV news and movies and stuff like that. That it's you know somebody's kind of just out on the street and like in really rough shape and maybe twitching around and stuff. And yeah, there's definitely people like that. But most people who use drugs every day who are wired like I am. Um,
Yep.
they are in your workplace or in your school or like in your community or your church or maybe your family, right? Like
Yeah.
mostly people just keep on keeping on. And I think there's a bit of laziness in journalism sometimes when you go to find the drug user who is visible because you don't have a house or because you're just like so disrupted in your life that you have to use on the street. But most
Wow.
people aren't like that, and the coroner will back me up on this because the BC coroners here mostly finds people who've died from overdoses at home in a house alone by themselves. And half of everybody that overdosed, got up and was going to work in the morning. And so the idea that you can imagine a drug user to be a certain thing, whatever most people have in their head, it's probably not right.
Yeah. I think and this is something that I'll get to in a bit, but Crackdown's kind of changed my perspective on. And I don't want to peel off this layer just yet, but because I think there's more to it. But I think I have that exact image as soon as you said, like, homeless esque looking person on the street with the sign, not moving, twitching all right. That is the standard. And that was for myself, and I'll speak for myself because I only can in this regard. That was what I had as an image for the longest time until the
Mm.
last 2, 3 years, and where it's now done a complete 180. Well, it's that's incredible, and I think that's something that a lot of people. I love that you mentioned that because a lot of people I think need to hear that because it's crazy. It's crazy. People, oh, walk downtown, you'll see this, you'll see that. Like you're saying, it's like that's a few of them, but it's not majority,
Hmm.
or it's
Yeah.
not the
So
standard.
it's just the numbers are so huge. Like I think there's 100,000 or something like that drug users in British Columbia, and so people are just everywhere, all walks of life. I think we have fashioned for ourselves this incredibly alienating world, and people really feel a sense of futurelessness. Like if I was graduating high school right now and thinking about climate change and all that, I'd be like, what the fuck? And housing
Yeah,
prices and jobs and like, well, I have
yeah,
to work for like Foodora and this and that. And you know what I mean? All at the same time. Uh, like who doesn't need to like try to put a lid on that anxiety a little bit and that bleak
yeah.
sense of futurelessness? Of course people are going to try and medicate themselves a little bit,
Hmm.
and then you add pandemic on top of it. I mean, my god, like I personally don't know how people don't use drugs. Like I don't know how people go through the world like just stone cold sober. That's a
Yeah.
mystery to me.
I don't know. I don't know because I was talking to a friend of mine about it earlier today as well, and he's like, man, between the cold weather, like I'm in northern Ontario, so the weather's
Hmm.
it's a dry cold compared to out west, but still winter in Canada is no picnic no matter what coast you're on. But
Hey, Yellowknife Kid
yeah,
right here.
yeah. Oh, so I'm one to talk then. But geez, wow, no kidding. So those winters must have been something else then, way up
Yeah,
north.
yeah, yeah.
Geez, yeah, that mixed with like talking to my friend, he's like, man, I just drink now. All I do is drink to get through this pandemic. Like, and he's lucky. He's one of the lucky ones who gets to go to work every day.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
insane. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of
around
people
me.
are drinking more. I think people are doing more of whatever it is that gets them through. And
Mhm.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, geez, it's a difficult thing. So I guess what I guess then what I what I'm curious is, and these are relatively sensitive subjects, at least for myself. I feel very, very. I feel like I have to be very careful when talking about these subjects, and I don't know if that's just a personal. I'm not. I'm not a user. I haven't been. However, so for that reason, I think I'm not able to get like to feel as comfortable being open about these conversations. But I try to stay open minded as much as I can on these issues because they do affect all of us, most people more than some, like more than some, a lot more. Um, but what I want to know is what made you, what was your heroin and methadone time like? Like, how long were you on it and how did you end up weaning off it, if so?
My heroin time started when I was a teenager, and my methadone time ran up till this morning. So it's I mean it's going to run probably the rest of my life. I'll be on some kind of opioids the rest of my life. I just want them to be like from a pharmacy, or that I know what concentration, what's in them, and I know there's nothing that's going to kill me in them, so and so luckily that's what methadone is. It's like methadone is like a very similar molecule to heroin.
Mhm.
It's not that much different. It's just it's legal, and it comes from a pharmacy, and it's not gonna just like kill my ass like with one shot, and
Yeah.
uh
And
and so I mean, how did it start? What happened? Like I have always for as long as I can remember, felt like I don't know, like a ghost in my own life. Like somebody who is like haunting around the edges of what normal world is doing, like school or my family or whatever, anything else. And I'm not sure how that happened. It's part because I got albinism, like I'm albino. I have really bad eyesight, so that makes me kind of weird and different. But also, I was exposed to someone taking care of me when I was a kid who shouldn't have been around children, like just should be probably in jail or something,
yeah.
and that probably didn't help. But all those explanations of like there's this cause in your childhood or this, they all seem kind of too reductive and simple to me.
Mhm.
I also think that we make a world where lots of people feel alienated, lots of people feel like I do, like a ghost in the world, and you're trying to find a way to get back in. And when you're kind of like just sort of outside of things like that, you just hear this like just the alienation is just hitting you. It's just howling over you. And so you start as a pretty young teenager, just trying to find a way to shut it off. Music, drugs, drinking, whatever. And then for me anyway, I did heroin, and I'm all of a sudden just like there's a switch, and it's just
Really?
like the howling stops, and I'm just like, fuck, I feel normal. I know what
Wow.
everybody else is doing. Like I didn't have this feeling anymore of being outside things. I didn't have this feeling anymore like I wish I didn't exist. I used to have that feeling a lot. Like not like I want to make a dramatic act of suicide or something. Just like I wish that I was not here, you know?
Yeah.
And uh, and once you find the switch to turn off all that bullshit, all that howling, you're just going to reach for it again, and you don't hate yourself
Yeah.
anymore. You're not alien to everything anymore. You're just like, you're at peace. It's okay. And so it's like, I didn't even think, oh, this is great. I'm so high. I'm so fucked up. Woohoo. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just calmness. This is just like, and so people talk about euphoria and all that stuff. And I'm just like, it's like this most profound sense of relief, like you've been carrying around a big painful backpack full of ton of rocks, and you
Yeah.
get to put it down and feel light, for a minute.
It's that sensation, but the consistency of it.
Hmm.
Wow. I think the way you make it sound when you said it's not woohoo, I'm high, I'm fucked up. It's I feel good about myself. I feel ready. I don't feel like an outcast. All these issues and this anxiety I had is lifted. That's kind of scary
Hmm.
to think that. It's not something that like, oh, we get high, we know, oh man, you do it, you get high, you get fucked up, you have a good time, you have a crazy trip, and you come back to life, and you can control when you do it again. That's like, that's crazy how it feels like it takes away all the anxiety and it just makes you like zen.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, everything around me was telling me I was wrong. Like I just felt wrong, looked wrong. I was like just like rejected from everything that was right, and certainly the some of the unhelpful people that should have been in jail around me,
Yeah,
they thrived on making kids feel like that, right? Like they just want to
yeah,
make you feel like this dependent alien. And so all these things were telling me, teachers, whatever, like you're wrong, like you're fundamentally like a wrong entity. And then
yeah.
heroin says, no, you're not. You're all right. You're fine. And so actually it was heroin helped me feel a little bit in control, like a little bit less like I just wanted to end it or just be not here. So um really, and I'm not unique in this. So many people who are dope fiends have said this sort of thing. It's just like it
Yeah.
it actually allows you to function in this way, or allows you to continue. And I was just like them. I was just like very generic, very generic dope fiend in that way.
Jeez. So now, does methadone, because it's a similar, same compound of chemicals, does it do this? Does it have the same effect, except it's more controlled? Is that I'm trying to really
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. Almost. So, of course, methadone and Suboxone and these medications to treat you,
Yeah.
they sort of take the punch out of it.
Right.
They sort of sand off the parts that are really that really the big sort of push, the big rush of heroin. They kind of take all
Yeah.
that out. Um, and but what you get is you get this place where you're not dope sick. Like, so
Right.
this is the other thing, is heroin stops the howling, but then once you're wired to heroin, you'll just be sick as a fucking dog if you stop. Like,
Oh,
I never know how to describe it to people because it's so awful. It's like being sick in your soul. It's like you're the ghost in the shell is ill and wants to get out,
oh
you know?
my.
And so like methadone stops that from happening. So methadone
Oh,
really takes care of the physical stuff. And if you are able to get your life into a place where you can take care of some of that alienation, some of that howling through other things, like I got PTSD treatment and that, then it can work out. But absent those kind of other things, you'll just keep throwing methadone at a problem and it won't quite get there. So for a lot of people,
right.
they take methadone and maybe it reduces the amount of heroin or something else they have to use, but they're still sort of they're still being chased by their own demons and that.
Wow. I can't, and I can imagine you not like being it as difficult as it is for you to explain and describe what dope sickness is. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I cannot do that. I
Well, let me try. So if you get a good, like, not contaminated, not fentanyl, nothing else, just like good old school heroin. You take that, probably about 12 hours later, you're going to start to like get this sort of, maybe chilly sweat. Your nose will start running a bit. Maybe your legs will start sort of twitching and kicking. And that'll just be
yeah.
the earliest bit. And you'll kind of feel that anxiety starting up. You'll just feel all those before you even feel a physical dope sickness. You'll feel that anxiety and that howling starting to back up. But then along with it, you get these early symptoms, like I was saying, runny nose and the sweats and twitching a bit, and then you're going to start throwing up like really bad and out of your ass as well. You're just going to be spewing
Oh
out of all orifices, and you're going to be like your muscles are going to be like almost contracting and seizing, and you're just
no.
you. So the clock starts running, and you'll be like, okay, at this certain point, I'm not going to be able to move to do anything about this anymore, and I'll just be in this hell for days. And yeah, and it gets pretty bad. People can have seizures and stuff like that off it, and
Hmm.
but you're just kind of in this deeply bad place. To me, it feels like it feels like my skin is wrong and my nerves are wrong and like my cells are wrong. It just
Yeah.
everything's all like doesn't fit together right anymore. It's all kind of, it's like between everything, there's sand. So the skin's like, the
Oh,
bones are kind of cracky. And it's just like, yeah, it's
mhm.
just like you feel like a ship at sea, all like creaking and fucked up. Yeah, it's, I
Oh
still
man.
struggle to explain it properly, but
Yeah,
it
even
is
just hearing
profoundly
that.
unpleasant.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm cringing hearing, even thinking of things that I can relate to, like runny nose, twitching legs and stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't want that. And then both ends. Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Runny nose and twitching legs.
yeah,
That's just the start.
that's the beginning.
that is your entree, your amuse bouche, your
Good.
appetizer for the main course, which is going to be a lot of spew.
Oh man. Oh no. Jesus. So and that's like you said, pure heroin. That's the clean stuff. Oh
Well, I was
my.
just thinking of when we're talking about fentanyl and street
Yeah.
fentanyl and other stuff that's in the cut, it can mean that comes on even sooner than 12 hours.
Oh
So
my.
I was trying to give your like
Yeah.
the baselines sort of situation, but yeah, like depending on the type of opioid can depend on how fast.
Oh
And
my.
then when opioids have now been the drug supply is getting mixed with benzodiazepines, that can make things even more complicated.
Mhm. So were you have you ever experienced heroin with the fentanyl mix? Like, have you ever experienced that stuff? Because it definitely sounds like a different breed
I mean,
altogether.
I've done fentanyl and heroin, but I've always known which one I was doing. Um,
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
and they are different. And then also what is sold as fentanyl changes too. So the
Ah,
potency, the mix, the cut, the stuff that's in it. So it's often cut with lots of other stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, that all changes a lot. And then of course, if it's not mixed properly, one little flap or one little hit can contain more of it than maybe others from the same batch, and that causes the overdoses. The uncertain concentration.
And then so it almost puts them over the limit when their system's used to a certain amount, and then all of a sudden they get this thing that they're not used to, and then their body goes into shock, and I guess the overdose is the way,
Well,
right?
imagine if you went up to a bar and you said, "I'd
Okay.
like a drink,"
Yeah.
and you didn't know what you were going to get. It's just like, "I want alcohol." And the
Yeah.
guy gives you like a coffee mug full of something. You don't know whether it's like Coors Light or
Yeah.
whether it's absinthe or tequila, but you just have to slam that fucker back, you know?
Jeez.
So you would want
Oh,
to
man.
know, right? You'd want to know, okay, it's tequila. I'll just have
I'd
one
love to
shot
know.
glass of tequila, right? I don't want a coffee cup or a beer stein all at
Yeah.
once. I mean,
Oh
I know
my
some people that's all right if they're like professional frat boy drinkers or whatever, maybe they can do it.
yeah.
But yeah, not me. I don't want to drink a pint of tequila all at once.
Yeah, no thanks. No
Yeah.
thanks, Garth.
So like
No.
if you know, then it helps, right? Like, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna have a pint, like me, I have a pint of beer, pint of bitter, or something like that, and you're like, right, this is great. But if it's like uh it ranges between, you don't know whether it's going to be 5% or 40% or whatever, 60%. Yeah, it changes your whole everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a good example. I think that's
Mm.
a really good example because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I'll tell you, there's good
Jeez.
political moments of this example too, because
Mhm.
if you think, what is it that makes drugs or heroin or what's sold as heroin, down, whatever, not like tequila? It's nothing about the molecule, it's the law, right? So the fact is, we always know what the alcohol percent is when we're buying booze because it's regulated, because it's not
Wow.
illegal, right?
Yeah.
But whereas drugs is illegal, it's not regulated. It means that people are fucking mixing that shit up in the back of their car or in some
Yeah.
room somewhere or whatever. And maybe they're having to do it quick so they don't get caught by the cops. And then
Yeah.
and then we're not able to sit in a bar and slowly nurse it. We got to sometimes do it quick, especially if we
Right.
don't have a safe place to do it or whatever. So it's like the fact that it's illegal, not the fact of the molecule, is what makes it so dangerous. I mean, that's the most dangerous thing about hard drugs is the law.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only I think there was one moment that stood out, and we'll get to Crackdown in a sec, but I was when and my friends and I laughed because we were on our way out west, and we were listening to an episode, and I can't quite remember which episode. Oh, it was the one. Well, it was the one where you interviewed, I believe, it was the chief of police
Mm.
or like head of media,
Yeah,
some with
yeah,
an
media
employee.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of like got it sound. We all laughed because like there are five of us, like 20 guys in their early 20s laughing that where you're like, what if I had heroin on me now? Would you arrest me? And he's kind of put in like a weird spot where it's, and you could hear it, and then it's one of those situations that we're just like, oh my, the fucking gull on this guy
Yeah, it's
walks
just
in the
fucking with them. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh no. That's where, now that when you mentioned sense of humor, I immediately thought of that, and I was like, yeah, he's just. I was like, I hope he's playing around
Oh,
because
I
if this
sure.
guy's having a bad day,
Yeah, sure I was. And I was just, well, I was being a little edgy there, I guess. But
yeah,
also I had my producer Alex with me, and everybody on the team knew that I was down at the cop shop interviewing this media spokesperson cop, and we had all the mics going and everything, right? So, and I also didn't have anything illegal on me at all.
yeah,
So,
very good.
I just thought, oh, this is a chance to sort of fuck with the guy a bit, but you know.
I was like, that's the most gangster thing I've ever heard of. Oh my. Oh, that's too funny. It's like, hey, sir, can I have some of your time to talk about this? And then, how would you? Oh man. Oh, oh, okay. Wow. I think
So
that's a good.
he was just telling
Uh,
me how, oh,
good one.
we don't bother people for possession anymore, which is not true, by the way. The Vancouver police are bothering drug users probably right this minute.
Yeah.
Um, the charges are different, but he was just saying, oh, possession isn't even something to worry about anymore. And so I just pat my pocket and I say, hey, well, what about the heroin I got right here? And he kind of shits his pants for a minute, and I'm like, no, I'm just messing. It's
Yeah.
okay. But
This
I
is
just kind
funny.
of wanted to see for real. Like I wasn't just randomly screwing with him. I was tactically and specifically screwing with them. So
That's
yeah, it
awesome.
was. Well, thanks. I'm glad you guys. I'm glad I could keep you company on the car ride west.
Yeah, it was a. I don't know if you've ever done that exact like a long car ride like that, or that one, or driven through the prairies even. There is
Fuck,
nothing
dude. I
fun
used
about
to
that.
play in a band and we toured. I've been on every boring ass
Oh,
car
so you know
ride,
better than most.
band full of bass player farts. Oh
Jeez.
yeah, yeah.
So when I say the car reeked of stale farts and bong water, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Oh man, that was it. Everyone's like, "Oh, how was the trip?" I'm like, "Stale farts and bong water," and
Mm.
Crackdown podcast playing on loop. So that was good. Good. The boys loved it. So that was oh man, that's too funny. So how did switching gears then? How did you get started in podcasting? Tell us a bit about that.
Um, I was actually I've been a sort of a writer freelancer for a long time, and I did community radio.
Mhm.
Back in the day, had a radio show, and I also made documentaries for CBC. Like I've made a few documentaries for this show called Ideas, which
Yeah.
does plays hour long shows, documentaries at night. And so I pitched them this idea, basically the beginning of the idea for Crackdown, and they were just like, "I don't, what do you? I don't even know what you mean." And I think it was in part because I'm terrible at like just pitching an idea like I'm trying to sell a car. Like I'm just not. That's not me. I'm not that
Yeah,
great
you're not
at
a
it.
salesperson.
But the idea stuck with me, and I happened to meet this guy who was working with us at the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, Dr. Ryan McMahon. He's a academic and a researcher, and he was studying the effects of the drug war and all this, and he would come and report the findings to us in the drug user organization. And we started to take him to meetings where we were trying to convince the government of shit. So he would, we'd present a little bit about what we'd been living, and then he'd present a little bit about what the research says, and then the government official would be like, oh, interesting. And of course we never managed to change the government people's mind, but one day walking out of one of those meetings, I think Ryan said to me, well, we're not getting anywhere with these people, but it might make good radio. And I said, oh yeah, good point. And so then the idea was born. We searched out some academic funding sources. We got a hold of Sam Fenn and Alexander Kim, who work with me, and Lisa Hale also, who are sort of like the production side. And then the group of activists that I mostly work with became the editorial board, and we just started making episodes about 2 years ago. But it took a year to get it started. So we probably started talking about it at the end of 2017, planned it for 2018, and launched in the beginning of 2019.
Nice. Yeah, a
Hmm.
couple of years now, 2 years
Yeah,
almost,
yeah,
just
yeah.
shy of two years.
We're in our third year right now, so we're just
Nice.
I guess we put out our most recent episode on December 31st or something like that. So we're
Hmm.
ready to do another one shortly.
Yeah, and it was cool because I was the way my kind of because again I mentioned it when we chatted the first time, when we first met, how I was introduced to it I think a year or two ago, and it was right after the Ryan McMahon episode, and
Mm.
being and then once he showed me, and then downloading the episodes, and then I worked for a company where I was doing renovations, and I enjoy that type of work. But what I don't enjoy is whenever it snowed, every morning at 5 a.m., we'd have to go to two properties. Depending on who you were, you got assigned to two properties and shovel them.
Mm.
So, me being naive in the moment, go, man, my life is the worst. This is the worst thing of all time. There's nobody experiencing worse things than me right at this moment. So what do? I take out my trusty earphones, take out my phone, I plug them in, stick them in my ears, and hit play on an episode of Crackdown. And when it's dark at 5 a.m., freezing cold, blowing snow, and I'd rather be anywhere else, it puts things into perspective. Hearing the stories, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I used to work construction as a construction laborer too, and this dude used to pick me up who was like 18 or something. He'd pick me up at like 7 in the morning in his Camaro or whatever, and we'd drive to some um, to the west to some mansion or something like that we had to like dig out the basement, like make the basement like 3 feet
Yeah.
deeper. And it's just like you just have to work one of those, like jackhammers, or like we had an electric one, and like just swing the pick
Oh,
and dig it out. It's just like just endless, right? And I had to
yeah.
dig the sump deeper, right? Like,
Oh
and I just
man.
remember being down in the bottom of the sump, and it's like you're in 2 feet of mucky water, and you're just digging out and trying to throw the. Just like,
Yeah, you're getting nowhere.
yeah. And then, of course, and here's where the worlds meet is lots of people in the industry use drugs. And, it's just like, well, this is why, like, I'm going to spend the whole morning down this hole trying to throw the terrible water up over the edge, like the terrible
Yeah.
mud. It's just like, ugh.
Oh
And then the
no.
guy and his first, someone to have their like rumpus room or whatever, it's like, oh no.
Yeah, room they barely even use, or it's for their grandkids when they stay once a year, like
Yeah.
some BS room like that. Oh
That's
man.
okay. I mean, I wish I had a rumpus room. I would turn it into like band practice space, like
Yeah, it'd be a
I
pretty cool
feel
studio.
it. But hopefully I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
that's
making someone like me dig it out for me.
it. Oh man. Oh, that's awesome. How do you go about creating episodes of Crackdown? Like what's your from here's an idea to the follow through and the execution?
Well, we bring the editorial board together once a month, and we talk about like what's happening and what we want to cover. And
Hmm.
we usually get a list of sort of topic areas out of those conversations. And then we go try to find funding for it. So maybe we'll see there's a theme, like a few about policing or something like that. And so we'll try to find an academic funding source that will fund us to make them,
Hmm.
get the money, and then we break it down into more detailed stories. Like police is just a topic. Like we want to cover something specific in that. And
Yeah.
so it's like, who is it that we want to talk to? What do we want to reveal? What research are we going to sort of show? Because there's always a what's the life like what do we experience, and then there's also what does the research show, because there's usually
Yeah.
a really good connection between that stuff.
Right.
And then we do the interviews. So I we'll figure out who we want to talk to. um, some of the producers will start reading a little bit about what the maybe if they're a researcher, some of their work. We'll try and figure out more about a person who's just in the life. Maybe we'll pre-interview them, or just maybe I'll go walk around with them and interview them on the mic, or we'll schedule an interview. And
Mhm.
so we'll get a bunch of tape in the can, and then we'll start to figure out what's the story structure. How does this all go together so that it's like interesting, so it's not just like, here's a bunch of shit that happens in a list, but like, here's a point that is dramatically revealed over the
Yeah.
hour or something like that. We kind of are story structure nerds a little bit, because I realized, growing up with and being with and living with drug users and just people who share their lives with each other through story, that you don't want to lose that. There's always somebody
No.
around in the places where I've lived or the communities I've been, who's kind of known to be like a really great bullshitter, like a really good storyteller, like a raconteur. And you kind of want to catch a bit of that fire, right? Like
Yeah.
they make everyone listen. Everyone wants to listen to them at the bar or something like that. Everybody wants to get in on their story. And
Yeah.
so we want to tell it like that, tell it good.
I like
And
that.
really good storytellers are aware that you save some information for the end. You make the narrative tension. You
Yeah.
introduce the character. You don't just say, oh, they went to the clinic. You kind of make it a bit cinematic. Like maybe you describe the methadone clinic a bit, or you give a sense of what they were wearing, just enough so that you're like, you can imagine them. So we do
Yeah.
that, and then we write the music. Like a few of us play music, and so we'll, sometimes I'll think, oh, this part needs really something that sounds like this. So me or my friend James, he's really great. Like when you really hear
Nice.
this script and the music just lock right up, that's usually him. He's
Oh,
magic
wow.
somehow. Yeah.
Damn,
Um,
that's so cool.
yeah. And he does it without knowing the script. He'll be like, what are you
You're
writing about?
kidding.
What do you feel? Yeah, he'll like somehow just like crawl in my head, and he'll be texting me, hey, what do you think of this? And I'll be like, damn, I was just writing something that's perfect for him. So he's just like magic like that somehow. So yeah,
Oh, that's incredible.
there's a really good chemistry between all the people working on it, And then periodically
Awesome.
throughout the process, I will talk to the people in the editorial board who are really like the experts in that. Like,
Yeah.
for example, 3 of our editorial board are Indigenous. So when we're talking about colonization,
Yep.
like Shelda specifically led us, I should say 2. We lost Charisse last year, but
Cool. Sorry to hear that. My
yeah,
condolences.
thank you. Yeah, it was we. I mean, we've actually started out with an editorial board of 9, and we have lost 2 in the 2 years we've been going, and I think it's. And we also lost a close friend of the show, Ron, last week. So it keeps going, right? But
Yeah.
I
Wow.
call the person on the editorial board who knows about the thing that we're doing most, or who's most interested in talking with me about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we just polish that all up and put it out there.
Nice. That's that's so cool. That's awesome that man, because the music and, like, the way because I think of all the podcasts I've listened to, myself excluded, yours has to be like, Crackdown has to be, like, at least tied for number 1 with something, or if not, like, excluding my own, my favorite has to be Crackdown, and I'm not just saying that because 'cause you're on the show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're lucky. We just
100%.
get people who are really like Sam. He's the senior producer,
Yeah,
and me and him talk every day, and he's just like he really gets into it, and we'll listen to a draft of it, and we'll be like, I'm getting a little bored in this part. What can we do to fix that? Or
yeah.
I don't understand why we're talking to this other person right now. Let's add in a little bit of an explanation why, or a signpost.
Mhm.
And so me and him, we kind of write the script all together, on Google Docs. So it's like the
Nice.
script is coming together, and then we're putting like the little bits of tape that we use, like bits of interviews, bits of people talking, because we transcribe that. So we have like basically figured out exactly what the show is going to look like. And then the last big thing I do is I read the script, and then Alex Kim, he's just like he's like a sound artist basically.
Yeah.
So he stitches it all together, and then he'll put some of his own like ideas into it, and yeah, he's fantastic. He also takes all the photos for the podcast, so
No way.
he's got a great eye. Yeah, he's I mean, I'm just lucky I mean, that's the success of the podcast, is we just have fucking excellent people,
Yeah.
like excellent people from the drug user activist movement, like the people who've been doing this since the start in Canada, and then also people who are really great at the art of audio storytelling. And
Hmm.
I just happen to get to sit in the middle of all that and try to improve my own skills and keep up, you know?
Yeah, no kidding, man. Because it's such a cool thing, and that's why I'm wanting to have you on and being able to introduce. I've already introduced like at least 10 people to it, but
Thank you.
yeah, man, no worries. And I
That's
think this
entirely
will
how
definitely
it
do that.
works. We have no
Yeah,
advertising budget or like promotional plan, or we don't have t-shirts. Like we have
yeah,
no, we should have t-shirts, but like we just don't, we haven't done any of that. So it's all word of mouth. So I really appreciate that.
yeah, man. No, 100%. I mean, it's like you said. Like one of the main drives that's interesting for me in this podcast journey is the storytelling. I just have such a love for hearing good stories because that's a skill that I believe I have, but I always want to keep it moving and like in or always growing, I should say. So keeping that skill and then hearing shows like yours that are different than mine, but also have unique stories, very unique perspectives, and super interesting and fascinating, cool people that come on. And that's inspiring to me as a creator. And then when you say have shirts, I got one made for myself, and that's quite literally it. And that was yeah, I see why yeah, don't it was more expensive than it should have been, but no regrets. So uh, no regrets, we just got to grow, I guess. But yeah, that's we my friends and I, we listened to room or episode, I believe it was episode 5 or 6, room 821
Mm-hmm.
at the Balmoral, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, awesome. That episode struck a chord with me and my four good friends on the trip, just with the description and the storytelling, and just we're so easily able to picture and visualize the rooms at the hotel. And then when we and I think I mentioned this to you when we chatted up the first time. We drove through the east side, like downtown east side on East Hastings Street, and I have a video and I want to send it to you. It's like 5 seconds long, but it's them reacting 3 days later to seeing the Balmoral. Like, it was crazy. It was like out of a movie. It was really, I swear to God, it was, I'll send you the video. It's awesome. But to see how they reacted, and even myself, like filming while they're like, oh my God, yo, that's it. That's the one from the show. We were just, and me going, what, you got like that? They're all just so fascinated and they're like looking at it. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. So just to see that little things like that are able to like resonate or make such an impact through your storytelling, just with a couple buddies of mine seeing something like that and remembering it from your story is pretty cool because it's just a building to them, but because they know the history and the story, it's now an experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, I never would have thought anybody would be excited to see the Balmoral ever. But I guess it just shows you the power of like connecting it to like human struggles and
Yeah,
um like letting people in. You know, and I think we just try to do that with everything, is make people care about um the just the people who are my friends, you know, who
yeah,
we work with, and the places, like these little intimate spaces, like the, you know, the injection room with the yellow linoleum. I think I described that in episode 2 or something. These little tiny places that that instead of being like this gritty urban, oh scary, you want to feel how they actually feel a little bit, you know.
yeah,
And I mean, I think Sam wrote the line in that episode about the Balmoral, because we were talking about there's this woman there who makes roast beef sandwiches for everybody in the
yeah,
building, and if you give a couple bucks, you can get a roast beef sandwich. And then Jay, the main guy in that episode, he actually fixes people's computers and phones and
yeah.
stuff in the building. And Sam goes, damn, I wish I lived somewhere that had roast beef sandwiches and and an IT guy right upstairs. And we're like, oh yeah, we should say that, you know.
No way. That's awesome.
Mm.
That's super cool, man. You I listened to an episode this afternoon, doing my catch up, and I think it was the second most recent one. Oh no, it was the most recent one, but you guys have a Canada Land one collab kind of thing. Um, but I believe the most recent one, you mentioned something about the Vancouver Olympics,
Hmm.
right? And the prediction, and you correct me if I'm wrong, from what I remember, was that doing that, it brings up the revenue to the city, and the city makes a lot of money. But then that would cause the number of homelessness, or the homeless person rate percentage and overdose percentages, to increase as well.
Yeah, I
Something
mean
like that.
the big trouble with the Olympics is that it's like a giant advertisement to the whole world. This come live here. Like this is a
Yeah.
great place, right? And so everybody who's got millions of extra dollars is like, well, I'll invest over. And so
Yeah.
that just drives up rents, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
been the last 10 years here has been like ludicrous for the increase in real estate, like property values and rents. And just like, so everything, all the old places are getting like demoed and turned into posh housing and big expensive condo towers where they're like $700,000 to buy a little unit or whatever.
Yeah. With no
And it's,
yard.
yeah, and it just drives everybody out. Like it makes no room
Yeah.
for anybody else. So this is a lot what we were saying is like if the governments are going to do something, because that took the city government, the provincial government, and the federal government all did the Olympics. If you're
Hmm.
going to spend billions, because they don't get revenue from the Olympics, they
Right.
spend it, so it costs them a lot of money to put it on. It's like, why don't you spend that money on something that's good instead of a party, and something that
Right.
won't have the side effect of driving rents up? Because we know
Hmm.
this happens because we can look at other places that have held the Olympics and the hyper gentrification that occurs afterwards. So yeah, the Olympics really, I mean, it was not a cheap place to live before the Olympics, but fuck, did it get a lot worse after.
Oh man.
And so we said at the time, you know, as activists, as community organizers, we said this is a bad idea. Don't do this. And of course, also there's a lot of stepped up policing during the Olympics. You know, they want to pretty up the city and kind of get
Yeah.
all the undesirable things out and people pushed away, and that always
Hmm.
happens. So you know, we were watching that happen too. So yeah,
Man.
we did talk about in that episode, I think episode 21, it was called Control.
Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
about the effect that that had when the government bought up some of these old hotels. And you know, they realized right away, oh, these are full of like rats and they're fire traps, and we have to renovate them a little bit. So when
Hmm.
the government renovated them, they also put in a lot of sort of fob key passes
Yeah.
and video cameras and stuff. And some of the people in that episode kind of were like, this feels a little bit like a prison or a hospital or both. And so from
Yeah.
the shabby yet homey feeling of a place like the Balmoral, which I mean, really, it was a pretty fucking bad place by the end there. It was a pretty big wreck. But
Oof.
there have been times when that had a very homey atmosphere where people felt really like a sense of ownership and a sense of community there. Uh,
Hmm.
and so you take a place and then you transform it into something that feels like there's a lot of control from some central authority. And of course, it's gonna change how people relate to the place. I think that was one of the point we were making. And the Olympics was a big turning point for a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it was cool to hear, and it's pretty fresh. Sorry, that's why I want to talk to you about it. Because what I like doing is when I listen to episodes of shows, most recently with Crackdown, I'll be like, oh man, I would love to ask them about this, or I'd love to talk. I don't know if that happens to you and that with certain things like that, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
for
man, I
sure.
gotta talk. Yeah, I gotta talk to them about this. I'm really, man. So hearing you iterate that again, and then going into it, I think too, right? There was like you couldn't, if you lived on the fourth floor and I hung out on the third, I couldn't just go hang out with you because I didn't have a key fob.
That's right. Yeah,
Which is
they
hmm,
lock off all the floors now. Yeah.
yeah, even my closest thought to that is when I lived in res. It was the exact same thing. Lived
Hmm.
in res in Ottawa first year of school, and that I thought was the closest I can relate to that. But yeah, same thing. Every floor, key fob for the room, key fob for the building. key fob to get in, key fob to get out, key fobs for every room, cameras everywhere, people policing it. And then the next year, I'm living in a house with three, like that's, I just walk downstairs and I'm outside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is different. It's not like a jail cell almost. It's a
Hmm.
nice looking, fully renovated jail is still a jail. So
And then,
obviously,
and when you get police, when you get people who've had police in their lives since the beginning, or maybe even for a few generations, their family, when
mm,
you get people whose parents have been like forcibly taken to residential school or something like that,
yeah,
get people who've spent a long time in prison, like you don't want your home to be a continuation of that. You want somewhere that's away from that.
no,
And if people can't escape that, then it's like the people in that episode, Joe and Patty, they just wanted to be away from it. It just had this effect of like just pushing them away.
it did.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it was a sad, kind of a sad ending,
Mhm.
sad ending to the story. But then realizing that most all of the episodes kind of have a, but all these stories like it's a sad story, and the perspective is, it's a unique perspective, but it makes me think, what can someone do from, for example, somebody sitting in my shoes, because I have people who are in the city. There's groups, right? There's like Facebook groups and stuff that it's like it's about the opioid epidemic and the crisis going on, and there's news articles, there's creating visuals, like representations of the overdose numbers in the city. um if you were king of the world and I said, Garth, here's the problem, what what are you going to do to fix it? Like, what can you do to fix it? You're king of the world, you can do anything. What's the perfect solution, step by step,
Well, it's
if there
funny.
is
The problem I've been working on, like I'm like a lot of people, like I really dream of a very different world, like something that's radically different, that's not based on just like profit and competition. And you know what I mean? I don't think capitalism is really good for the human spirit. um,
one?
but the problem I've been working on right now is keeping my people alive. Just having people, including myself, not die.
Yeah.
And so that's a much less ambitious problem than changing the whole world. Just not dying is pretty much the minimum thing you could try and hope for. And so if
Hmm.
I was king of the world, and I could solve the not dying problem pretty much overnight, is that
Yeah.
we are dying in huge numbers because the drug supply is contaminated. But everything that drug users are using, there's a pharmaceutical equivalent that's already been manufactured probably for decades. Right. So
Hmm.
unlike the pandemic last year, where there was no vaccine and no one knew what to do for months and months, um, there's been a vaccine for the overdose crisis around for as long as there's been opioids, pretty much. you
Yeah.
know um so we just have to change the rules. We just have to change some writing that's been written down and reinforced in um you know provincial and federal capitals and around the world, but just in Canada,
Hmm.
so that people can access that stuff. And then the other so that's a legal, regulated, safe supply
Hmm.
of hard drugs. And then the other thing is to get the police out of the mix, to just have them stand down. So if I was king of the world, I'd say, hey, cops, you have no role in this. Like, I don't
Yeah.
see you all going to, when someone has a heart attack, you don't show up there. You don't go to an operating theater to observe. Like, you don't go to someone's counseling session. So if the overdose crisis is really like a health issue or a social issue, um, cops have no role.
Yeah.
So if I was king of the world, I'd say, stand down. Go call in sick. Go have a fucking donut. Whatever. Just don't go do this. And
Yeah.
and then once people are not going to jail, getting a pharmaceutical version of something, they don't have to do crimes on the street. They don't. There's organized crime isn't profiting off of drug sales. So you have like all kinds of things that are a bother to regular citizens. You know, or like the role of organized crime in society is not very positive. So taking the fuel out of the gas tank changes that a lot. Like organized crime does run on drugs to a greater or lesser extent. And
Yeah.
you take that out of the mix. I mean, you change the world a lot by ending the drug war. And
Hmm.
that's what's got to happen. And I think governments always wish that they could somehow do something that looked positive without doing that, but there's nothing short of it. It has to be that.
Yeah. It's a very, very, I said this a few times, it's a very, very sensitive manner to conduct that, because as much as I'm with you on this, I want the war to end. It's not something that I enjoy. I don't like knowing people die. I don't like seeing posts about it. I right. I don't like. I It genuinely impacts me when I hear the stories from Crackdown and when I read stories, and I've tried to educate myself as much as I can, and talking to people on the subject, they very, very much have a I want to fix this mentality, but I don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I think there comes with, like, there's also a laziness with the average everyday person thinking, oh, somebody's got to do something, and everybody wants to say somebody, but who? Well, you. Like, how do you do it? And then we band together, show the higher powers how it goes. Like you said, capitalism and socialism is, might not be the best option, but yeah, it's a sensitive subject that's definitely I definitely don't know enough about, but it's definitely something that I don't want to see more. I don't want to see more death or hear more about stories. It's sad. At the end of the day, it's not a good story. It's sad.
Tell
I
you,
don't know.
about a kilometer from where I'm sitting right now is where the very first hard drug arrest happened in Canada in 1908. And it
Wow.
happened because white people in Canada are, like just very vulnerable to getting a big fear on about immigration. And they
Yep.
are now and were then. And they had a big a
Crazy.
rally down at City Hall, which was right, almost across the street from the Balmoral back in the day. Back in
Yeah.
1907, they had a big rally there. It was the Asian Exclusion League had a big rally against Chinese immigration into Canada. And this was not just like random people. This was the city's great and good. They came up in fine carriages and they had a big rally, and then they went and smashed up Chinatown and smashed up Japantown. They went on a big fucking riot for 2 days,
Yeah.
terrorizing those communities. And after that happened, the federal government sent a guy out here to just look into whether businesses around needed compensation for the damage and stuff like that. This guy found out that, oh my God, there's opium being manufactured here in Chinatown. And not only that, but he was given testimony that these foreigners were using opium to corrupt white women and girls. And he
Okay.
wrote this in his report back to Ottawa, and he said, we got to do something about this. So they made opium illegal the next year in the Opium Act of 1908, and they arrested the first person shortly thereafter. But before 1908, people just smoked opium, right? It's this black tarry stuff. Let's see if I can show you some.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just a
this is
sec. Just a
wild.
sec. Just a sec. Let me see if I can. It's like I don't want to
Oh
dump
yeah.
this out, but I don't know if you
Yeah.
can.
I don't blame you.
Hang on a sec. Let's
Oh
just
yeah. I don't know
angle
why
the.
I'm looking
No, no,
down like
no, no.
this.
There you
Oh
go.
my.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there
So,
it is.
so it's like it's kind of a tarry mess, but you stick it in a pipe and smoke it or eat it or whatever. Anyway, no problem. People aren't overdosing off of that, and it
Yeah.
wasn't illegal. But then they make it illegal, so now you can't have people having little factories or opium dens. Um, People are having to smuggle it around, so you need something smaller. So eventually you get to heroin, and then you need more bang for the buck. So eventually you get to injecting heroin, and the
Yeah.
decades go by, and heroin, the same laws are in place, and the same um, action from police is happening, and it's increasing. The Nixon wants the war on drugs. Police get funded more. They're chasing
Yeah.
heroin harder. So heroin has to get smaller and stronger. You get what they call China White. You get the overdose crisis in the 90s here
Yeah.
from strong heroin. Then you get fentanyl, you get carfentanil, and it's like a fucking arms race, right? They keep
Yeah.
chasing after this stuff. So people got to keep chasing, making it smaller. Well, I mean, that's why the drug war has caused the overdose crisis. The laws that are based in racism have led to this situation. And it's just,
Mm.
there is no way, moral way or logical way that you can keep doing those laws knowing this. They can't exist. They were founded for the worst reasons, and they create the worst effects. So
Jeez. Yeah.
this is also known, they saw this in prohibition, alcohol prohibition. Everyone drank beer. Alcohol became illegal. Then everyone had to be drinking moonshine because they had to make something smaller and easier to take away and take around. And then they made alcohol legal again, and most people went back to beer. I mean, people still drink
Right.
hard stuff, but the most popular alcohol drink is beer.
Yeah, and see, they make. I think it's also what they make. It seems to me, if it's illegal, they'll make the smallest amount possible that much stronger to compensate,
That's right.
if whether that's conscious or not. And then it sounds like the same thing with the drug war, and it's just
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can send fentanyl in an envelope,
yeah,
like by airmail, but just by in the post, right? You don't
like you
have
can
to have
just
a
mail
shipping
it.
container full of bales. Like it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's like,
Yeah.
and that makes it harder and harder for the authorities to detect. So it's
Mm.
makes a lot of
I
sense.
almost
And then of course they're
yeah.
just disrupting the traditional heroin trade. Heroin's made out of poppies. Poppies
Yep.
are grown in specific places in the world,
Yep.
harvested, made, and they got it. There's big transit routes to get it to the markets. Well, you can make fentanyl right here in Vancouver or anywhere easily. So because there's been so much pressure on those transportation routes, so many drug war disruptions, they've
Yeah.
really incentivized people to make it in a lab instead of in a poppy field, right?
Right.
So fentanyl is chemical, and it's much more dangerous than heroin, which is mostly made out of opiums or
Oh,
opium
okay.
poppies. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh man. Yeah. Do you think then, hearing that, would it almost be better to put like a as controlled as they could do it, instead of making it illegal, make it like almost like a drinking age type of deal, like 18 up kind of thing? I know it's a
Oh,
weird thing.
sure. I mean, you could you could
That'd
you
be
could
better.
you could regulate
Yeah.
drugs however you want, right? Like if you
Mm.
try and buy booze in Canada, it's different in different provinces.
Yeah.
Like there's a corner store just over there. I can't get beer in it, but if this was Quebec, I sure could just go down to the dépanneur and no problem. So different provinces have different ways of regulating their substances. Sure, you could do that. There's lots of different arrangements. You could, have a age that you had to do it. I mean, I don't know. There's like people could actually sit down and blueprint that out,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't. It doesn't need to be like a market, like a free market, like booze, where beer is constantly like promoted to you and advertised. You don't need to have like a whole industry around making it look cool. You could decide to do it a different way. But it's like the first thing is to take the laws off, and then you decide together what kind of regime you want to come in place of it. And
Yeah.
I would argue don't have police at that table. But
Yeah, that's when it gets very, very sensitive. People don't want to maybe go opinions, or they might get looked at a different way or judged by their peers, or their community, even just to make those choices and side with what they believe in. It's tricky. Yeah, finding a way to almost like, I almost feel it can't go from zero or from 100 all the way down. I almost feel like it has to like go down slowly. Whether it's how it's done is I don't know,
we've had
but like
lots of
hearing,
suggestions about that. We've been
yeah,
advocating for prescription heroin. So not
yeah,
just like a liquor store with heroin, but where people get it prescribed instead of
mm,
methadone, you get it prescribed by a doctor. Um, they make this stuff called diacetylmorphine. That's
yeah,
pharmaceutical heroin that is manufactured in the world. So it is
mm,
possible they do this in some other countries with
yeah,
quite a bit of success. We have not had very much success in Canada getting that off the ground. So, that we do have gutless cowards leading governments who just don't want to do this sort of thing. So
yeah,
it is hard, but we do have these intermediary steps suggested. We've also
mm,
suggested like a heroin buyers club where people could be members, drug users could be members, pool our money, be able to access and buy that pharmaceutical grade heroin, distribute it and
yeah,
use it to ourselves And the only thing we would ask of the authorities is just don't arrest us for doing that. Just
Yeah.
just give us the carve out, give us the exemption from the law, and let that be legal. They haven't been interested in that either. So it's we're trying to find those intermediate steps, but you got to know to really diagnose the problem. You just have to see it in its whole systemic entirety. That shows you what the ultimate solution is. But of course, we're fighting for the increments all the time, like safe injection sites,
Yeah.
naloxone, that sort of thing.
Right. You're fighting for the, yeah, like you said, the increments of little victories here and there to keep people from dying at the end of the day, right? That's the goal.
We should think about it too, is that most things that are a health issue or something, that the politicians often say now that this is a health issue.
Mhm.
They just there's no role for people's sensitive opinions or bad feelings or political uncertainties. Like there's like the cancer clinic that my grandmother went to. There was no like neighborhood protest about it opening. There was no like big Facebook group that decided they didn't like that they had what's that stuff in there, the chemotherapy drugs and stuff
Yep.
in there, interferon and all that, right? Like
Oh yeah.
people just like, oh yeah, that's how the doctors know what they're doing. Just let them do their thing, right?
Yeah. Nobody questioned it.
Yeah. So it's because this has been a criminalized group of
Wow.
people, right? Cancer patients aren't criminalized. They,
No.
I mean, face a lot of fucking obstacles, right? But not the law isn't one of them. And so it is when you have a group of people, that's when you get all these sensitive and people feeling, oh, we can't do it. It's because they just harbor this dislike of drug users, and that comes from the law itself. Law is who says is where it's the code where we see who's in and who's out, who's doing things so bad they should have their liberty taken away.
Right. There definitely is a stigma around like drug users, all that stuff with when it comes to because of the law and like you said, because of the mainstream media. And then I almost feel too when they show overdoses and everything going on in statistics, they do it in like a way of instilling fear in you instead of saying, yo, this is a problem we're showing you. How the fuck are we fixing it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do? And that just, to me, it seems like it's, I don't know. I don't know. It's bigger than, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I think that's my biggest challenge with it and understanding. I think that's why I appreciate Crackdown and you coming on the show is to the goal to give me the utmost perspective as I can get on this issue so that I can convey this in my everyday life when more often than not, and it's crazy, every day this subject comes up. And a lot of times I'm one of those people, I know not a lot of people are like this, when they have somebody's asked an opinion on something, right? And they immediately jump in and tell you what they think. However, more often than not, they don't have the right information or they don't have enough information. Instead of saying, I'll typically find myself go, well, I don't have enough information on that. I can't get into this with you. It's not something I'm educated on well enough or even the correct sources. And that's something that I appreciate you being able to enlighten me on and educate me on today.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm just fortunate that I have a group, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, where I learned a lot about this stuff from policy. Like people like Dean Wilson and Laura Shaver taught me.
Mm,
Laura taught me how to talk about my own drug use without being ashamed, without sort of couching it in so many qualifiers, and I every episode we make it makes me do more research and talk to more interesting people, so I learn stuff all the time.
that's awesome.
And it can also be so complicated and overwhelming. The easiest thing to do, and for listeners or watchers of this show to do, is
Yep.
is learn naloxone. It's actually pretty simple. Like I could teach you over this thing, you know
Yeah.
um and you can get it almost anywhere, and I think everybody should learn it. Um, and everybody should have it. It should be part of every first aid kit, because you don't actually know, in your life, you probably know people who might use it. And also, if your grandmother's taking pain medication and has a bad interaction with something else she's taken, you can use it there too, you know? So it's like anywhere where there's a possibility of an opioid overdose, um, you know, it's worth learning that you can save people's lives. You know, it's a simple thing to learn. It also will make you feel like you have a bit of agency. It's also makes you feel like you could be part of a movement, because this is not something that was gifted to us by the authorities of the government. We fought to get access to Narcan. They
Mhm.
told us originally, oh, no, 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 it's only for medical professionals. You idiots out there couldn't possibly
No.
be smart enough to use it. And we're like, no, 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 we can figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
and
Give us
so
the
that's right. And
come
and
on.
and there's people
Yeah.
that actually stole this stuff, like managed to liberate it from medical facilities and you know, smuggle it around, distribute it to drug users and stuff before
Yeah.
it finally became legal. So we want it. It's like it's our thing, you know, and so we want to invite everybody in society to be part of what we pried away from the you know, the back closet at a hospital or in an ambulance locked up or something like that.
Mhm. That's all. Oh, man. I think you're right. I definitely agree with you. I don't know if there's like a video or you do a tutorial even one day, or I'll have you back on the show. Fingers crossed the technology works a bit better next time.
If you
Um,
you look up
do it.
naloxonetraining.ca, there's a video
Yeah,
there that'll walk you through.
a
And
good
at the end
video.
of the video,
Perfect.
if you can get a little certificate that says, boom, boom, I know how to do it.
Oh,
And
no kidding.
yep, that's it.
Way easier.
Yeah. I mean, I have
Perfect.
shown people how to do this in a
Yeah,
parking lot, walking to their car. It's
it's
not too hard.
not rocket science, eh?
Mhm.
Perfect. But it's weird. Oh no, you idiots can't figure it out. Please watch us.
Yeah.
Watch us. Man, okay. Yeah, I definitely will do that. Naloxone.ca. You said yeah. Yeah.
Naloxonetraining.ca.
Training.ca. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I know what I'm doing in a minute. That's awesome. That's awesome. Garth, brother, I really am super grateful you were able to make time this evening. I know we went a bit over our scheduled programming time, and I apologize for the difficulties at the beginning with the tech. I appreciate your understanding and patience. And yeah, man, I can't. Next time I'm in Vancouver, I'll treat you to a pint or two or three.
Thanks very much. Well,
So
thanks for having me on the podcast, Glenn. Is a really good chat, and take care, be safe, keep six.
sure, awesome. Yeah. So about the yeah, I'll send you my email, and then you can we transfer me the me transfer me the file. Hopefully it's yeah, just a search for the Zoom.
Okay,
Type
I'm
in
gonna
Zoom, I got
just
two
hang
keyboards.
on. I'm just gonna
So
stop the recording
yeah,
now,
perfect.
and I'll just hang on to make sure.